Good day viewers, my name is Lucky Ayasi and today I'm going to be talking all about sewing machines. I'm going to be talking about a manual sewing machine and an industrial sewing machine. What are the advantages and disadvantages? As a fashion designer, a standard fashion designer, can you use a manual sewing machine and will it give you a quality work? Is the manual sewing machine and the industrial sewing machine, are they the same? Do they perform the same function? Do they give the same result? These are some of the things I'm going to be enlightening you about the manual and the industrial sewing machine. So please stay tuned. Now, what are manual sewing machines? A manual sewing machine is basically a sewing machine that all its operations are carried out manually. It's totally mechanical. It has a pedal, so you just move the pedal with your leg, and that movement alone moves the parts of the machine and it gives you your stitches. An industrial sewing machine is faster. It has a motor that powers it, and it is usually powered by by electricity. So it powers it and it propels the machine parts to move. So one of the major differences between a manual sewing machine and an industrial sewing machine is the speed. Now this is a very good example of a typical industrial sewing machine. Now, as a fashion designer, I've gotten this question a lot. As a fashion designer, can you use a manual sewing machine and will it give you the perfect result? The answer is, as you guessed it, no. If you go to top fashion houses around the world, even around Nigeria where I reside, you find out that all you see there is industrial machines. Whether it's a sewing machine, whether it's an overlocker, whether it's a zigzag machine, it's all industrial. And there's a good reason for that. It gives the stitches on an industrial machine is way better than that of a manual machine. Now, as a beginner, if you're just starting out, let's say you're still in training, you're still going to a fashion school to learn, you can start with a manual sewing machine because that was what I started with. You can be using it to practice, maybe your first or second or third clothes, you can sew it. When you start building your customer base, maybe your first customers, you can be using your manual sewing machine. It can give you the result at that moment. As you grow and your customer base begins to increase and the quality of your customers begins to go up, you need to step up and get an industrial sewing machine. The stitches on an industrial sewing machine is usually very even. But on a manual sewing machine, you get uneven stitches, maybe because of the presser foot not resting on the fabric well and all of that, and even the stitch regulator, it's not really that accurate most of the times. So most times when you make a cloth or a garment with a manual sewing machine, sometimes you come across uneven stitches, you come across skip stitches, and there's a level of customer base that you grow into that those little errors can actually affect your work and affect the quality of your result. So the stitch quality on an industrial machine is way better than that of a manual sewing machine. So that's the first point. Now the second point is the speed. When you talk about manual sewing machines and you talk about industrial sewing machine, an industrial sewing machine is way faster than a manual sewing machine. And one of the major reasons is because an industrial sewing machine is powered by a motor. What you do is just you power it and the motor propels the machine, so it goes very fast. So let's say a trouser or a top, you can finish it in a matter of a couple of minutes or just a couple of hours, while on a manual sewing machine, it takes a longer period of time. So the industrial sewing machine is way faster than a manual sewing. The industrial sewing machine is way faster than a manual sewing machine. Now there are advantages of a manual sewing machine over an industrial sewing machine, and one of it is on a manual sewing machine you can use it without electricity. In a country like mine where I reside, like Nigeria, where the power supply is not constant, a manual sewing machine can serve as a backup. If you stay in a place where there is constant electricity supply, I think the go-to source is an industrial sewing machine. I believe the choice of which machine to go for rests on the level you are at as a fashion designer. If you're just beginning, you can start with a manual sewing machine, but as you advance I think as your business expands, it's very advisable to get an industrial sewing machine to give a quality result.